Welcome to Edith Head, Hollywood's costume designer, the new exhibition at the Oklahoma City Museum of Art. This exhibition highlights the famed Hollywood costume designer Edith Head, who ruled the costume design departments at Paramount Pictures and Universal Studios for almost 60 years. This exhibition highlights 70 costumes that she designed throughout her storied career, as well as 20 sketches and even 3 of her Academy Awards. Edith Head began as a sketch artist, but soon became an indispensable protege to Travis Banton and Howard Greer at Paramount. By 1938, Edith Head was the chief designer at Paramount, the first woman to hold this position. She designed for some of the most famous stars such as Grace Kelly, Audrey Hepburn, Barbara Stanwyck, and the list goes on, designing for some of the most famous and well-known films. When you first walk into the exhibition, the first costume you'll see is this beautiful red dress designed by Edith Head for the film The Heiress, starring Olivia de Havilland. This film is actually the film that Edith Head won her first Academy Award for, which we have on view in the gallery right next to the dress. One aspect that made Edith Head such a success as Hollywood's costume designer was this innate understanding of the transformative power of clothing. She also had a special way of working with actors and actresses, where she would listen to their concerns, she would watch their body movements and traits, so she would design for the script and the actors. And this allowed the actors become incredibly comfortable in the costumes they were wearing and actually help them to transform into their character. In fact, she had so many loyal actors that she worked with. If they weren't working at Paramount or Universal, they would ask to have her written into their contract. When Edith Head started working at Paramount Pictures in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, she was designing for black and white films. She didn't have to think about the color of the costumes so much, but rather the tonal contrast. And she would use metallic fabrics and sparkly materials to create visual interest. However, with the invention of color film, she suddenly had to think more about the color, not only of the costumes, but also the color interaction with the set design and the lighting. The gallery that I'm standing in now are costumes from musicals, mostly from the 1940s and 50s. The invention of color film lent itself really well to flashy musical productions. So she would create these beautiful, colorful, flashy costumes that we see in this gallery. This one here to my right is covered in beautiful blue bugle beads. But of course, the actress, Betty Hutton, was dancing around and moving. And so she also made a similar costume, but covered in blue sequins instead. Edith Head had a lot of fun designing this dress, worn by Juliet Prowse in GI Blues. You'll notice this skirt is what we call a car wash skirt, and it moved around when Juliet Prowse danced, almost becoming part of the performance itself. When you're walking through the exhibition, you'll come upon a wall of 20 sketches designed by Edith Head and the sketch artists on her team. When Edith was designing for films, oftentimes hundreds of preparatory sketches would be created. You'll notice there's some fabric stapled to the sketches, and that is the fabric that Edith chose as the final fabric. She would take the sketch along with the stapled fabric to it, and it would go to the director and the star for approval. Beach and tropical films first became popular in the 1920s. In fact, it was a tropical costume that first put Edith Head's name on the map. Behind me is the sarong designed by Edith Head for Dorothy Lamour. An authentic sarong was made typically out of cotton and would wrap around the waist with the breasts exposed. However, because this would not have passed censorship in Hollywood, Edith Head had to come up with her own sarong. She used a satin crepe or a satin silk, which draped better, and she of course covered the body and added shorts to go along with the sarong. Edith's sarong design actually became very popular with the masses and had a huge impact on the bathing suit industry. In the 1960s, there was another round of popular beach films. These were aimed more towards teenagers and a younger audience. They did not create a great design challenge for her. She typically would create dresses, ones with full skirts, such as the red one that you see behind me, or more body-conforming dresses with a slit at the side, such as the green dress. Edith Head had a long-lasting working relationship with the famed Hollywood director Alfred Hitchcock. In fact, they worked on 11 films together from 1946 to 1976. It was Alfred Hitchcock who brought Edith Head from Paramount Pictures to Universal Studios in 1967. We have this beautiful black organza silk dress that Grace Kelly wore in Rear Window. They worked on a number of films together and wrote hundreds of letters back and forth to each other, even after Grace Kelly became the Princess of Monaco. A lot of the scripts that Edith Head was designing for called for some more intimate moments at home, but along with the Hollywood idealism. Oftentimes, the actresses were shown in beautiful lace and silk gowns with full makeup and full hairdos, even though they were just hanging out at their own homes in the film. Edith Head had to battle the Hays Code, which were strict moral guidelines self-imposed by the film industry. Suggestive nudity and sexual explicitness were prohibited, especially for bedroom scenes. Enter the lounging ensemble. Part robe, part negligee, part fancy pajamas, the lounging ensemble was Hollywood's solution. During World War II, costume designers like Edith Head had to deal with fabric rationing. This meant no extra frivolities in their costume designs. No extra ribbon, pleats, large collars. You'll see this black suit behind me was worn by Veronica Lake in the 1942 film The Glass Key. It's a very simple black two-piece suit with no extra frivolities, barely a collar. If a costume designer wanted to work with luxurious fabric such as silk or velvet, importing was not an option. They either had to work with the fabrics they had in stock or do without. The 1960s was a revolutionary decade for film and for costume design. Filmgoers were no longer interested in the Hollywood idealism of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. They wanted more realism in the films they were seeing on the big screen. This gallery is full of colorful 1960s inspired costume design. We have 2 costumes on view from the film What a Way to Go, which was the most expensive film that Edith Head designed for, with a $500,000 costume budget. Historical films have been popular since the early days of cinema, with their lavish sets and mass choreography of crowds and armies. These films are huge undertakings, not only from costume design, but with budget and casting as well. Some of these films could have up to 15,000 extras cast, and they all needed costume designs. That meant that frequently there was more than one lead costume designer for the film. Edith Head would take 1 or 2 of the lead actress roles and design all of their costumes for the film, while other designers would be relegated to the menswear or the extras. On view in this gallery, we have examples of costumes from historical films such as biblical epics, westerns, all the way to the 1930s. Edith Head, Hollywood's costume designer, was organized by the Oklahoma City Museum of Art. And this is the only museum you'll be able to see it at. The exhibition runs through September 29th, and you won't want to miss it.